Hello, all you couples out there. When's the last time you sat down and talked about finances with your spouse? How did that argument turn out? Probably not very good. We're going to talk about that and some solutions next on Triple F. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Triple F. Today we're going to talk finance, man. Let me ask you a question. I mean, we're going to be talking couples and money. Couples and money. There is nothing that's harder for couples to discuss than finance for some reason. Do you and your wife talk about finance?
Okay, so look, I have to say that of the things that will get me in the most trouble is if I have to go and talk to Sarah about why she's spending money on this or that. And because the stuff she spends money on, of course, it's like makeup and beauty care as examples, right? She does all the other stuff too. And then I'm like, Sarah, why are we spending $30 on X, Y, and Z? I don't understand. And then here I am over there like, I'll go buy some new tires for the car.
We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that in a minute, about the different spending of the men.
I'm so bad. I'm so bad. I'm so sorry, honey. I'm so sorry for all those years. In fact, I think I worked really hard to get somewhat financially independent so that we wouldn't have to be on the budget every single month.
Okay, you're not allowed to watch this video back after we're done unless Sarah's sitting next to you. So, and I would advise anybody out there, if you're about to watch this
Don't
video.
Don't tell me we got to do a budget.
No, I'm not today. But get your spouse in here to watch it with you, because we've got some explosive good stuff today, and we're going to tell you how to work through this stuff. Because a lot of people think, why do money talks matter? What's so important about husbands and wives being on the same thought process for money? Well, so I would tell you, first thing, you need to know who you're married to. Okay, you need to know who they're married to. You need to know what their upbringing was. Were they exposed
You mean before
to money?
you marry them?
You need to know now who you're married to, but it'd help if it was before.
Yeah, is there like a questionnaire or a checklist that we should offer for anybody that's thinking about getting engaged?
There should be. I think everybody should go through financial money counseling as a couple before they get married. But very few people do that. You know, they're too busy.
Maybe you should offer that service.
Yeah, I've done it before actually, but I don't do it anymore. But I've done it. So I've done this. I've actually sat down with hundreds of couples, as I've mentioned before, and talked about money. But the thing that kind of caught my attention years ago when I started doing this was money is the top cause of relationship stress and actually divorce in America. It's bigger than any other topic.
I could totally see that. 100%.
It just runs through your entire life. I mean, everything that you do as a couple, you have kids, everything, it's just all about finances. Financial transparency builds trust. Okay, so if one person's hiding stuff, the other person's not, I mean, you can really build up a lot of resentment.
Unless it's makeup, excessive amounts of makeup.
And it's proven that couples that have shared financial goals stay together longer. Okay, and
so shared checking accounts.
Well, we're going to talk about that in a minute.
Okay, I'm not going to say anymore. I'm like still in the thunder.
We're talking about the different stuff.
Go for it.
And so what I tell people is that as a couple, you're either both going to win with money or you're both going to lose with money. One of you won't wind up rich and the other one poor as long as you're married, okay? Yeah. So if one person's trying to build something, the other person's tearing it down, you're both going to have a problem. If Tyler and I were sitting here in a canoe together and he got a hole in his end of the canoe down there, it's going to be in my best interest to go help him figure out how to fix the hole. We're in the same boat. We're in the same boat. So it's the same way with a marriage. You're in the same boat as a marriage, and so if there's a problem financially, you've both got to figure out how to solve it, and you both have to contribute to that. And so you really need to understand your spouse. How did they grow up? Did their parents ever talk about money? You know, what is their thought on it? And then it kind of moves into the next phase, and that is money personality. What personality do you have versus what personality does your spouse have? And let's talk about the different personalities, and this is kind of fun. I always like to analyze this when couples came in and sat down and we talked about it. You have savers.
That's my wife.
Which they're no fun.
Okay, I didn't mean that.
They're no fun because they never want to do anything, right? They just want to save money all the time.
Boring.
Then you have spenders.
That's me.
And they're no fun. Well, they are a lot of
What?
fun. They like to have too much fun.
Yeah, I was going to
The
say.
problem, they don't like to save anything, so they actually like to have too much fun.
Yeah.
And then you have an avoider. An avoider, they avoid all discussions about money, and they let the spouse assume all the stress. Okay?
They just don't want to talk about it.
They don't want to talk about it. They just want to be able to spend on what they want to spend on and not have to talk about it or discuss budgets.
I can be like that sometimes.
Yeah.
I can be like that.
Then you have a risk taker. That's the person that takes the money and they're gambling. They're buying all the stock tips that they overheard at the water cooler.
I'm not gambling, but I can spend my money on some dumb things.
Yeah, and so, but they're just risk. They spend money just with no risk, no thought about what the outcome's going to be. They just spend it. And then you have that security seeker, which is the opposite, and they want to save and invest and have security for the future. They're thinking ahead a little bit, and they want some security in the future. So
that's me when I talk to you.
So the problem we have is we have a saver and a spender in the same household, because the saver wants no fun, the spender wants all fun, and so they have to somehow come together and talk about it and figure out what they're going to do. Because I've always said that a person, you can have as big a saver as you want, but the spender can always outspend what the saver can save. So it's so much easier to spend. And so you have to figure out where you're at money personality wise. You really don't need both savers, because then you really never have any fun.
Man, you are boring. You don't have any friends.
And if you have two spenders, you never retire, because you have no money plan.
Always
You're
working.
just out there spending.
Yep.
And so there's got to be a happy medium in there, and we just need to recognize that of what our spouse is, what they are, and you have to appreciate that a bit and work together. But we're going to talk here now as to why you want to work together. So there's really, when I would sit down with couples, we would talk first of all we'd get into financial transparency. We'd lay it all on the table, and this is kind of a good way for couples to start if you've been married for a little bit, or even if you haven't been married for a little bit, if you're newly married. The income, what are all the sources of income? Just one works, both work. What is all the income, and not the gross pay, but what are we seeing in our checking account that we can actually spend? And you have to come up with the realization that if that's all you have, then that's all you can spend. Okay, you don't want to spend more than that, because then you're just going into debt. And we're not the government; we don't have money presses usually at our homes, and so we can't just print money. We just really have to live within our means, live within that income. If it's not enough, we find another job, or we find we try to figure out how to make more money.
My dad said something about a tree.
Yeah, money tree.
Outside.
I have one in my backyard.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like there are, we got our own.
It's been in permanent.
We don't have a press, but we got a tree.
I have a tree, but the season's been permanently fall. There's no leaves on it. There's no money on it. So.
Dang it.
It's been in that winter mode. And so we start out with income, then we look at debt. Now, this is where a lot of the surprises happen. I've sat down with couples before, and when you take all your debts out of the dark closet and you put them out on the table and you start talking about them, there are credit cards that one spouse has, the other one didn't know about. There's balances, all over the place. And I've actually seen people in tears talking about this stuff, because they've discovered accounts that they didn't know that they had, that now they owe $10,000 for. Because when you're married, everything's joint. Everything's, all your finances, if one person's a disaster and has a really low credit score, the other person's going to suffer from that. And so you need to know what all your income is, what all your debts are, what do you owe somebody.
Preferably before you get married.
Credit score. Yeah. How important is that? Okay, some people will tell you credit score is not that important because you shouldn't have debt and all that. But I'm telling you, credit score impacts a big part of your life. It impacts car insurance rates. It impacts whether you can buy a house or not. You need like a 720 credit score, and then you can be up to 850. But anything over 720 is just showing off, really. But you need 720 to kind of to get a new house and get the best loan on cars and best loan on a house.
It's also a good indicator for how responsible you are.
Yeah. In a quick story, I was working with a young man, and he worked with him for several years, and he finally met this young lady, and they started dating and eventually got engaged and married. But when I was working with him when he was single, I said, when you go on your dates, I was giving him good dating advice. When you go on your dates, let's don't talk about blood tests and all that stuff. Let's talk about credit score. Ask her what her credit score is.
On your which date? Like the 100th?
Maybe the 100th before, as you get engaged.
Okay.
Maybe. But you can also ask her about her credit
That's a
score.
first date question.
But he actually asked her early in the relationship, so she knew he was financially responsible.
I actually think Julio might ask that. pretty
What's your
quickly.
credit score?
I think he might. He would ask. I think first thing he would ask would be, "What's your religious affiliation?" And then, "What's your credit score?"
Yep. Because credit score, I mean, if you ask it early enough, you can just bail out right there and never go back.
I'm telling you. Look, get your app, your favorite credit score app, pull it up, and be like, "Here you go."
Hey, you have to know this stuff. You don't want to find out after you're married, and now you're legally obligated, and you're going to share each other's credit score.
We are saving you guys so much heartache.
And then the other thing we talk about are spending habits. Talk truthfully about what do you want to spend money on, okay? Because what I find is that the women that I talk to, they will spend money, as you were talking about a while ago, on a bunch of little bitty stuff. Let's think about the relationship. Women are mostly responsible for groceries, whether they want to, most of them are. They're responsible for taking kids to the doctor. They're responsible for all the errand running, the dry cleaner, the drugstore.
So much.
And so they will spend a lot of money in small little increments.
Yep.
And then the guy will go down and buy a new car. Or go on a $2,000 hunting trip over the weekend. And so they don't spend often, but when they do, it's impactful.
We make it happen. We make it rain.
And so it makes it difficult to budget when you have these two different types of people.
Oh, and if you have two spenders like that, like the woman and the man.
Yeah. Oh, I know somebody that hit their debit card so often it's got smoke coming out of it. It's just, that debit card and credit card are just smoking all the time, man.
Yeah, maybe that's what you should do. You should be like on your first date, you should be like, "Hey, can I take a look at your debit card?"
Yes,
and
burn
then
marks on it.
Just see how worn out that thing is.
And then financial fears. Everyone has fears, and so you want to make sure you talk about it, with your spouse, all the fears that they have about finances. And it may be some stuff they have in their past. They may have filed bankruptcy, or their parents filed bankruptcy. There may be some pain there. So, what are the fears? Some people fear running out of money. Some people could care. They just live for today. They're worried about tomorrow. So know what the fears are and respect those in your spouse.
Okay. But wait, what is your financial fear?
Mine?
That's a really good question. What's your financial fear?
My financial fear when I was working was being laid off from my job.
Right.
And not having income.
Okay, I got that.
Now in retirement, my fear, I really don't have that many fears now because I'm fairly...
Adobe?
Yeah, well, the wrong stock maybe, but I don't put so much in one stock that it just kills me. So.
Yeah.
But
so you don't have any fears right now financially?
Financially, no, not really.
I think if I were retired, I think the thing that would scare me the most would be a health crisis that then could turn into a financial crisis.
I'm on Medicare now, so they take care of most of that
Okay.
stuff. So that goes back to having good insurance.
Yeah,
but that would. But I don't have a whole lot of fears right now.
That's what you call freedom.
But I think
That's
it comes
freedom.
with education of finances, and so I think that as somebody educates himself around financials and stock market or whatever you're invested in, real estate, whatever it is, just be competent in that area and understand the risk involved, and don't get yourself too overextended in any one area. Just stay somewhat diversified. And so with financial transparency, it's all about no secrets. You just don't want any secrets because, that's called financial infidelity when you have secrets from your spouse. And so you don't want that because that can lead very quickly to discourse in a marriage. And so stay away from that part.
That in Netflix infidelity.
Yeah.
Like if you're watching a show and then
Too much Netflix?
your spouse watches your TV show without you,
Oh,
That's what you call,
that's true.
That's what you call Netflix infidelity.
I know.
That'll get you in trouble.
Sometimes I'll wait for an hour, for my wife to actually come so we can actually watch the show together. And sometimes she's waiting on me. I'm doing a phone call and she'll have to wait on me. But we try not to start our shows that we're watching together before the other one comes in. So
that's how you keep a healthy marriage. Don't mess that up.
That's boring. That's pretty boring stuff. Yeah. So what's the biggest issue that couples have? And I'm about to tell you what it is, and it really depends on where you're at in your relationship, but it's joint versus separate accounts.
I was just about to say that, but that's only because I can see your screen.
Joint checking accounts or separate checking accounts. And so I'm going to tell you now, my opinion is if you are married and you and your spouse can actually talk about finances in a loving way, and we'll talk about that at some point, what that would be.
Just kidding.
Fully joint.
Yeah.
When you marry someone, I hear all the time, they say, I can't do a joint account with my spouse because they spend too much and I'm not a spender and I can't keep up with all of that. So if you have united your life and you're sharing everything with your spouse in your life, you ought to be able to do a joint account. And it's the one thing that I think brings people together very, very nicely. And it makes for a better discussion if you're sharing everything jointly. If you both have the same, goal setting, and we're going to talk about some of those advantages, but
It's caused some arguments in my household.
yeah,
So you know.
and it does. But
What is that charge for?
But they're healthy arguments. But they're healthy arguments, right?
Really?
It keeps away a lot of the secrets. But let's say you can't do it, and so joint accounts work best, especially for people that are young, just getting married. Pull everything together. You don't have any past really, that you have to worry about. Just bring everything together. Put all your money in an account, and then disperse that out on a planned budget. And I'll tell you, when my wife and I, we were young, we had one account, and she was staying at home, and I was working. And she would always complain about not having money or whatever. And so we decided to get two accounts, and we were going to fund her account that she could use, and I'd fund my account, and pay the bills and what have you. And what we found out, it was, instead of having one account with zero in it, we now had two accounts with zero in it. So it didn't help our financial situation at all. But it did give her a sense of money. But that lasted about 6 months, and we just said, forget this, let's bring it back together. And so ever since then, we've been enjoying joint accounts. And we've been married for 44 years now. So
Can I give a tip?
Sure.
So, not that I'm recommending this, but if you have to have a separate account, you could start your own business and then run all your silly expenses through the business.
Yeah. That goes back to our financial infidelity discussion. And so let's just say, though, you can't do a joint account for whatever reason, okay? Y'all, even though you're able to agree on getting married and having kids and raising family, you just cannot do joint accounts because y'all are just too different, and it's just driving one or both of you crazy. So
or if it's your second marriage and she wouldn't agree to marry you unless you had separate accounts.
Yep,
that is common.
So most of the time, what you find with second marriages is that, and I don't know if it's the trust factor. I don't know if it's. I think what it is mostly that both people have been on their own for some years. They both established a life on their own, and now they're trying to bring things together. And so there you have two choices. You can go yours, mine, and ours, where you have your account, I have my account, we have a house account, we both fund that. Yeah. Or you can do fully separate accounts where you have yours and I have mine, you pay your bills and I'll pay mine, and you proportion, all the other bills based on income levels and that type of thing. And so you have to eventually choose what fits for you and your spouse, what's going to keep you married, because the idea of this isn't to be so hardcore on one that you can't stay married. But I will tell you, what you get with joint accounts versus separate accounts is you're actually able to create shared financial goals. You talked a couple podcasts ago about you and your wife had a shared goal of paying the house off in 5 years. And so when you have a joint account, when you have joint accounts, you can actually share those financial goals. You can figure out how to do them, and what goals to set, how to meet those goals. Because what you find when you have separate accounts is one person may be sitting on a stockpile of cash, the other person's got all this credit card debt. When you're separate, you're not going to solve that. This one over here with all the cash isn't necessarily going to pay off all the debts for the spouse. That's their stuff. This is my stuff. And so you get a lot of, you can't really maximize your financial goals and your financial picture if you have separate accounts. It'll work. I'm not saying separate accounts won't work. I'm not saying that, his, mine, ours, whatever. It's not, it can work, but it's not going to maximize your financial goals. And so the only way to really make the most of your income and to reach the most of your goals that you set, and to really build wealth, I think, in the maximum way, is a joint account. I mean, you can do the other things, and they're going to work possibly, but you're not going to maximize.
Yeah, you just don't have full transparency.
You don't have full transparency. You have assets over here, assets over here. And sometimes these assets can help with maybe some of these liabilities and these liabilities, and vice versa. So it just helps if you have all of your resources in one, and you can then put, then how much am I saving for retirement? Okay, I've got a 401k, she's got a 401k. How can we best maximize both of those? If I'm doing my thing and she's doing her thing, she may be putting 2% in, and I'm fully funding mine over here. Then you start getting jealousy. Well, why don't you, spend as much time on retirement as I'm spending, and that type of thing. So it's really just, it's just so much cleaner and better if you can get together. And you are married, you do have families, probably, a lot of you. And so you have to be able to talk about finances. And I'll tell you, if you can talk about finances with your spouse, you can talk about it about any other subject in your life that's happening. So it's really a way to really just bring you together as a team more instead of a joint venture or partnership. You're actually, when you were married, you were united. And so I think it's best, if you bring everything together. But, if you're just two totally different money people and you just can't handle it, do what kind of works for you. Yeah. So this is part one. And so I was going to divide this because there's a lot more to talk about with couples and money. And we're going to have a part two coming up at some point.
Good.
In the next podcast. But I just wanted to kind of get this one out there. And in the next podcast, we're going to talk about shared financial goals. We're going to talk about a little bit about budgeting together. We're going to talk about handling conflicts, how to do that, how to make the big financial decisions, those types of things. That'll be in a part two podcast. We didn't want to make this one, an hour long. And so we wanted to just kind of introduce this couples and money thing. Let this soak in a little bit. And we've talked about joint accounts versus separate accounts. We've talked about financial transparency and why it's so important to have these money discussions. So we're going to advance this in part two of our Couples and Money series, this little mini series that we're doing. And man, we'd love to hear from you. If you have preferences on checking accounts, joint, shared, whatever, and you have any experience at all in handling money as a couple, any arguments that you come up with, please drop something in the comments, and we'll be more than happy to address that.
Yeah, especially if you crashed and burned.
Yeah. Like and share the video, and share this with any other couple that you think might be able to benefit from something like this. I get so many times there's people come to me and say, man, can you help my brother and his wife? Man, they're just really having a problem with coming together with money. Well, this video, the next one, we're going to get as specific as we can, but this may give them some areas that they can focus on and maybe talk about how they can hold these discussions without killing each other, because money becomes like a real emotional issue for a lot of people. And so we really have to get serious about it and talk about what the best way is to kind of handle it. So, and there's not a lot of financial couples and money counselors out there. So there's not a lot of counseling available. You have counselors, but they're kind of marriage counselors, which sometimes this devolves into marriage counseling. But it's hard to find just somebody to sit down and talk about, just money and your money issues and that type of thing. So.
Yeah, it's definitely would be interesting to see kind of what are the strategies for, because generally that would come from the person who likes to save or who likes to invest. They're the ones that are going to probably facilitate this type of discussion because they're going to have the value and importance placed on it. And so what would they need to come to the table with to try to encourage their spouse, who may be the other one who is the spender or someone who just doesn't want to talk about it? Right. That's kind of their financial love language, or so to speak. What would you need to come prepared with, and how would you need to handle if there's a confrontation? I think would be super useful. Yeah,
and I think that'd be part of our part two. And it'll be like a budget discussion. What does a budget discussion look like? How do you approach a spouse that may not want to do a budget? And when I say budget, it can be a loose budget or type, however you want to work it. But I'll give you the reasons why it's important to have a budget, first of all, no matter how much money you have or whatever. But we'll come up with some strategies. If you're the spouse wants to do the budget, your other spouse has no interest in a budget, how to maybe bring them to the table, because it's going to take both of you. One of you aren't going to be able to do a budget if the other one's not aware of it, and it's just not going to work. They're going to blow it out of the water in the first 24 hours if they don't know what's on the budget.
Maybe offer a Birkin.
Yeah, well, that's possible, but I'm thinking more wine and cheese.
That would be cheaper.
At the budget,
That'd be cheaper than a
budget meeting. But anyway, that's it for today. We're going to do part two coming up, probably in the next week, and we will see you then.
See you later, buddy. Bye bye.